excited to have you here. It was so much fun. We reconnected recently. We hadn't really been together much, and it was so fun to see you again. And when after talking to you, I was just reminded, like, such a cool person. I really want her on the podcast. So thank you.
We do click. I do agree. I love it. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah. So the way we love to start our podcast with one particular question, which is we're going to get in the Wayback Machine, a little time travel. We're going to go back to when you were graduating from high school and the world was your oyster. You were looking at this wide open world you were facing. What were you thinking? What did you imagine your life would be like back then?
Career-wise or just life?
You can answer however you want, but I think we're thinking career.
Oh, I was such a dork. I love doing, I worked, helped my dad at one of his companies doing little, like paying their bills and stuff and writing checks. And that's when I knew I had to go the accounting route because I loved it. I still to this day, if you need any bills paid, I'm your girl. I love it.
You just like the numbers, or do you just like, you're like, I love giving other people my money?
It's the bookkeeping part of it. It's the keeping track. Oh, I'm writing the plumber and you're filling it out and mailing it.
Like
I just love
the endorphin of like, done.
I do love a checklist, but it's sort of like playing house. I felt like, oh, I was so mature writing these bills out, and somebody else was signing. It was their money. But I loved it from that point for sure.
Oh, wow. So you knew you wanted to that was the world you wanted to be in.
Yes. My grandfather, he was a teacher, and he said it's very rare that at a young age you know what you want to do. It's just where my passion lied. And luckily, there's plenty of careers in this that match up to it. I just like the order and I like to know things. So accounting just fit me perfectly. I got lucky. I know it did.
Well, and accounting is the language of business. I mean, that's how we talk about business is in accounting. So I feel like an accounting background is an incredible base for anyone to really go in a lot of directions.
I feel that way as well. I think if I could go back to school, I wouldn't necessarily get my degree in entrepreneurship. I would get it in accounting or finance or go deeper in a specific topic because it's especially around money, because it's such a good base to go off from, like all the other things you can learn as you go. But a formal education around money would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, to anyone.
And the whole premise of accounting is you need to know how you're doing. Business is a lot by feel. As you know, when you're in business, it's a lot by feel. But sometimes you can be wrong, and you can look at the stats and realize I've put a lot of time and attention into something that is not yielding any money. At the end of the day, it's about you have to have some profit or you're not going to have tomorrow.
Yeah, it's data, and it's kind of harder truths and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So you're working for a family business. You realize you love money, that you must pursue accounting. And then what?
Well, on the career path, I went to Bellarmine, and they're known for accounting. And I found it easy, and it fit me really well. And then I knew the next step, because I always follow the rules. The next step was you have to go through public accounting. That's what you had to do then to get your CPA. And that about killed me. That about broke me, because it's a hard profession with hard people. So you're suddenly surrounded by everyone who they're very bright and they're all very skilled. But the top layer people used to be pretty rough on people, I thought. It was like a law firm, how partners are known for being pretty rough on people, especially
putting through the grinder kind of.
Yeah. And we worked a lot. And we worked till
Making
3 in the
people
morning.
pay their dues. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very different now. Now I would really encourage everyone to go through public accounting. It is the best way that you can learn how lots of industries do things. You're not going to ever see that again in your life because you're in your industry or, wherever you work or whatever company.
Well, and the tables have turned. I feel like there's a shortage of accountants. And so, these big firms are desperate for these young people to come on board and get started. And so they can't grind them up anymore.
Right. They have definitely changed, and it's been over 10 or 15 years or more. But I went the stated route. I followed all the rules. I was supposed to go through public accounting. I was supposed to get my CPA, and I did all that and checked it. But I did not love public accounting. It didn't bring out the best in me because it made me so nervous. Looking back as a much older person, I was doing well. But at the time, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like they expected me to know what I was doing, and it was such a harsh environment, which I didn't blend in well with. So in hindsight, I guess it all worked out for the best. I left after a few years and went towards business, and I'm glad I did. But it still was the way I leapt off, I still refer back to things I learned there that I probably would have never learned anywhere else.
I think of that as your like renegade impetus story though, because I think we all have that moment where we're like, I did everything I should have done. I did everything they told me to do, and I still wasn't where I thought I would be. And then I had to start thinking for myself and realized I wasn't happy. And
Right.
that's it. I think we all have this moment where we're like, you know what? This path that I should have taken isn't the path. I'm going to go a different direction. And that's when, you kind of became a renegade.
And that's back then. I'm older than you. You didn't talk about insecurities or anxiety, none of that. So I really thought it was just me. I don't know if other people noticed it, but I was a nervous wreck. And you never mentioned it. No one ever mentioned it. And nowadays, I can say to you all, oh gosh, I worry about things. I'm a worry wart. And it's totally fine to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it was not okay then, or it didn't feel that okay. So if I knew then what I know now, I would have said, you're doing great. Keep going. Heck with these men at the time I thought were so old. They were probably 50, 40, but at the time I thought 150. Don't let them apply pressure on you. You're doing fine. So I think you parent like you need it to be parented, and that's what I would have needed was, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be discouraged. All right. So this is a little bit off the topic slightly, but it mentions in your bio that you were president of the Society of CPAs.
No, I was chairman of a committee.
Okay.
So
okay.
not the president of the Society of CPAs.
So I've done a lot of that kind of leadership of like organizations and volunteer organizations and that kind of thing. And I'm just curious what it's like to run a committee meeting with a bunch of CPAs.
Well, I know, I know we get to be the jokes of movies and such, but what I always told my kids, you either are a geek or you work for one.
Yeah.
So pick your poison. And those are my friends, we see each other. Like if I sent a note to you guys and said, I'll see you guys soon or whatever. And the reply back was so perfect. Like she said, her personality was that she would have already known where to park, how to park. That is so me. And I don't understand people that aren't that way. So being part of that committee and running that committee and just making sure we were putting on good continuing education courses. It didn't even seem odd to me. Those are,
yeah, those were your people.
Yeah, here I can
The
assign.
jokes aren't wholly true. Like it wasn't like just a boring set of not. Clearly, you're a CPA and have a huge personality, so that's a good thing, right?
You know how the people used to think of IT people, and that's not who they are anymore. That's how they used to think of accountants. I think in a back room. I feel like we're the ones that either run the business or help it run well.
Yes.
Because as I've told my folks, that it's easy to run a business that loses money. I'd be great at running the government. Good grief. You can lose money all day long. Or some of these airlines that lose so much money. And that's not hard to do, is run a company that loses money. It's harder to run a company that is sustainable, keeps going, grows, and is strong. Because what I want to be is that company that's around for my employees when things are hitting the fan, like when COVID happened. I don't want to be the one to lay off. So that means 5 years prior, I need to be saving money, like you do in your personal life.
So what made you go towards entrepreneurship? What made you start your own business? And tell us that part of the story.
I have to give the credit to my husband, because normally I probably would not have taken that risk, because I am more of a nervous worry wart type person. But he's what? Worry? What? He's just out there doing stuff. So he is super smart. He's at a CPA firm at the time. He does really great. No stress to him. And he decides, I think I can run a business as well as anyone else. And so he ends up buying 2 little businesses and putting them together. And then he works at it part-time while he keeps his normal job, because that's his wife. I'm like, I need something for sure. If you have a business, you don't know for sure that you're going to get paid. And then after multiple years, he worked in it a little bit full-time, and then he went back into industry. And by that time, I had gotten to be controller at Porter Paints. And it's owned by an international company. At the time, it was Cortalt's Coatings. Now it's PPG. And I was kind of working myself into the ground. And I decided I was going to take a huge leap and try to stay home. And it doesn't fit me.
Did you have kids at the time?
Yeah.
You stay home with kids? Okay.
I had young kids, and I always felt like I was hiring other people to live my life because I would never take off to go to any other functions. I never wanted to leave work early. I was just that person. So when I stayed home the year, I really enjoyed it. I got to really do everything with the kids.
That's nice.
But after a year, I've got to say I needed some different challenges than that. And my husband said, "What about running our business?" And I thought, well, I mean, nobody's telling me what to do. I can come and go as I please. I'll do it, and I'll do it part-time. That didn't last. But that's how it worked. That's how I got there.
Do you feel like, even though it wasn't part-time, that you got to develop more of a sustainable life-work balance? I know that I feel like that's a little bit of a fallacy. I don't even have better words for it. But
Yes.
you got to develop what worked for you.
Yes. And I swear, I'm just learning now that, like, all that pressure you're talking about earlier about a book you'd read, all that pressure was me because I put that pressure on myself. And it's taken me, I swear, just the last 5 years to me to say, I'm okay. I have enough money in the bank. I'm fine. I don't live or die by this business anymore. And so I've taken the pressure off.
Mm.
So maybe those old men that are now, I realized were 40 at the time, those old men I thought were putting pressure on me, really it was me. I took everything that they said, their body language, what they thought I should know, and I internalized it. And now I feel like I'm the best version of myself because I don't allow that anymore. And I don't allow myself to do it. That's the key.
Mm-hmm. I was told by a business coach literally yesterday that I should myself to death and I needed to pull back on the shoulding. And I was like, I know you're right, but how do I stop? But you mentioned the book that we were talking about right before we started recording. And I think that the lesson was so good, Maggie. I actually want you to kind of tell us like the premise and the name of the book and things like that, because I think it's an important conversation for female entrepreneurs.
Sure. So this book is written by a woman named Byron Katie, and it's called Loving What Is. And it's based on this belief that she teaches that everything we experience is in our minds. Okay, we experience the world, touch, feel, smell, but we experience it all within our brains, And so sometimes if we aren't really paying attention to what beliefs are coming out of our brains, if we believe everything our brains say, we get ourselves into a point of suffering. If you believe, well, the way he just turned his head and looked at me with a side eye means I'm not working hard enough, right? If you take the time, if you learn a habit of questioning your thoughts, you reduce the amount of suffering there is in the world. And you really begin to realize how much our brain generates useless thoughts. It never really stops. It's sort of a separate thing. We think thoughts, but then we also have these thoughts that just are always running. They never stop. And if you put too much weight into it, you'll be, shooting yourself to death. So she really teaches this ability to sort of separate, raise your consciousness and separate yourself, mindfulness, separate from your thoughts and look at them a little more objectively. Thoughts like the government is destroying America, right? And then you really take it through a questioning rather than having a reaction to that thought, rather than me panicking, tightening up, raising cortisol, all the things that happen in our bodies when we have bad thoughts. I cannot have that reaction. I can notice that I'm having that thought. Doesn't mean it isn't happening, but it allows me to really assess the thought and say to myself, is that something I should invest myself into? And it's an incredibly calming and centering thing to be able to do. It doesn't mean, I never feel things or I don't panic or any of those things. It just means the everyday stuff that just flows out of our brains, you can separate from it a little bit.
You're questioning all of them, but also like those automatic negative thoughts, especially, right? When those are popping up. And I think we all have them. It sounds like you experienced that in accounting in your early career. I think we all experience it. And you were talking about how we didn't have that freedom when you were coming up through the ranks to even have the conversation about
Why am I so anxious?
why am I so
Yeah,
anxious?
I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
And I think
Is it just me? Am I a weirdo that I'm feeling all this?
And I think everyone felt that way, or a lot of people felt that way, and they did think they were the weirdo. Like, why is everybody else handling it so well? They're not worried. Why am I worried? But what you said that hits with me, and that's what yoga does for me, is instead of just ignoring the feeling, like you just kind of ignore the feeling and then you have it again. For me, it swirls around, and then I'll have it again, and then again and again. Or in yoga, you recognize it, first of all. So you recognize that you've had that thought and that feeling. And that's huge, because once you recognize it, you realize, oh my gosh, I've had that thought or feeling like 15, 16 times today. It's not 15 or 16 different things. It's that same one.
Yes.
It feels more manageable,
Mhm.
and you separate from it. And in yoga, you do with breathing and
Yes.
letting things go.
And so what Byron Katie teaches is not only separation, but almost like a dissecting of it. So you really understand the thought. I'm having this thought, this anxiety, and you take the time in her process to really explore it, embrace it,
And she may get down to the
stop
base.
thinking that. Instead of stop thinking that,
Right.
that's an interesting thought that you're having, and let's take it apart.
And she'll get down to, and that's the part I haven't figured out how to do yet, and I'll have to keep reading on the book, is you'll find the base problem is maybe you don't have the control. Like the thought that you're concerned about isn't really about that particular thing. It's, here's something that might happen to me I can't control.
right.
And so she helps you get to the base of what your actual worry is.
Yeah.
That's how I've been reading it.
Controlling your reaction and being able to not try to stop the thoughts. But
Well, and I think that connecting it back, and even my own journey towards entrepreneurship, a lot of millennials, it might have been true for you all as well, but my subsection of age group, I'm 33, almost 34, we were taught, go get a good job at a corporation and get good benefits. Go to college, get a job. Go to college, get a job. And I even specifically remember my dad telling me to find a rich man and let him mentor me. And one, he wanted me to marry one, but after I'd already gotten married at 23 to not a rich man, love you, honey. He was like, okay, well then I'll find a rich man to work for. That was his
solution.
And it was just he was an entrepreneur and didn't even realize it. And at some point I took that and it was like, I've got a degree in entrepreneurship. Why am I working for other people? And you have to take that moment to question the shoulding, what you think you should do and where you should be by now, and what everyone else expects of you or whatever you're expecting of yourself, and grasp that and pull it apart and say, what do I want? What is true? What is fake fear? What is real fear? What is real limitations? What are fake limitations? And kind of go from there.
And being slightly older,
Yeah.
just barely.
Barely.
I think we look back and say, if you're going to take a risk, now's the time. For you guys younger, is better to take those risks because there's less to lose. It's much different if you decide to be an entrepreneur after you have kids in college and big debts and you hadn't saved. So I think timing helps too. But
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big believer that I'd say start it whenever.
Yeah.
I'm just I think it's hard to say when is a good time. I mean, think about
Mine was not a good time, and by anyone else's standards, would have been an absolutely
Right.
Exactly. Time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Typical might have been good, but
Yeah,
for you,
yeah.
you had some twists and turns in there. So
Tell us now. You get your husband buys 2 businesses. He believes that you can take these and run with them. He's kind of rallied you, and you're now running the what I guess is now one business. Tell us this part of the story about what did those businesses do? Where did you go from there?
Okay, so he bought 2 businesses. One was called Tempo Temporaries. So they had temporary workers. And one was Professional Edge, Legal Edge, and they were direct hire legal staffing. So a company would call and say they needed a legal secretary, and then we would recruit. And if they interviewed and wanted to hire, there would be a fee for that. So when I joined, the only recruiting I had is luckily at Porter Paints. They thought I hired well. I wasn't in HR. I ran the accounting department. I was the controller, but they would have me hire sometimes in other areas that weren't mine. So I got some taste of what it was to hire. But I didn't know the recruiting world at all. Thought this is crazy that I'm going in. I'm the boss. I don't know about this world. And I learned the temp world is a crazy world. Crazy. I've never fathomed that someone would go to work and leave at lunch and never come back. That was never on my radar. People do that all the time. They'll say they take the job, they won't show up. They'll show up a day, they won't show up the next.
And I suppose recruiting for Porter Paint, where you're recruiting for a corporation, offering that cushion of
Stability,
like
yeah.
stability as opposed to a temp agency is, different clients and different workers.
Different. And I had a hard time with it because I was putting my principles on them and it didn't work a lot of the time. So one of them was temporary, one of them was direct hire, and we just grew it from there. They dabbled and did some accounting hiring. They, I think we did engineering when I first, yes, we did engineering hiring when I first got there. And we just, I went in there and started learning and started deciding that I did not love the temp side of the world. But I was a scaredy cat, so I kept it for quite a while because I used to say, temp will pay the light bills while you're trying to make the hire, you know? But after, I don't know, I must have run it at least 10 years, we finally started shifting. We pivoted it away. It's a little scary when you make a big business decision like that.
It's very scary.
But it has worked.
Mm-hmm.
My recruiters are much more geared towards direct hire staffing, the hard to find hires, the niches, and we do pretty high level hiring now and quite a bit. So that's how I started with those two businesses, just got in there and tried to learn them. The first, all I could do was affect cost. So I made sure I knew every cost in the business. But then I was like, well, revenue is what's driving this baby, but I'm not a salesperson. And then I started following and reading books by Jeffrey Gitomer. Have you ever heard of him?
Yes, Jeffrey Gitomer, yes.
2.5 reasons to blah, blah, blah. 5.2 reasons. He always had stuff
Weird
like
numbers,
that.
yeah.
They're little books. And what resonated with me is to be a good salesperson, you don't sell to people because people don't like to be sold to, but they like to buy. And that's what clicked for me is give them the argument of why you're better, why you're good at what you do. And that I could do because I didn't feel like I was selling.
Because
so
it was true.
Because I believe it.
It was easy to sell something you believe in
Yes.
like that.
So that helped me a lot to get into that sales mode. And then different layers of learning as you go through businesses, we need to charge what we're worth. Because at first you think you discount. That's the way you get all kinds of business. But after you feel like you're pretty good at what you do, you try not to discount because you undervalue so much of all that you've worked with. I will discount if you've hired multiples for me, but I'm not, if someone wants to be new to me and they always want that discount up front, I'm like, well, we'll do the first hire at regular price. The second hire within 6 months, we'll do it at a discounted price, you know. So I just kind of kept learning all the different aspects of the businesses that were brought to me. And now I got to say, I enjoy it. Most of the time I enjoy it because I like the hunt. I like that my employees are working hard to find the right fits. So it's like a puzzle. We're puzzle makers. We have a candidate that we think is good and we're trying to fit them into the right company that's hiring. I said that completely backwards though, because people a lot of times think that's what we do is the candidate pays us, but the client pays us.
Right.
So the company is seeking to hire a controller. The company is seeking to hire a vice president, and we look to try to find the right fits for that.
I want to back up to the beginning of where you were talking about how your husband had taken these two companies and put them together. He's still got a job, but he's got this little agency he's put together, and he hands it off to you, says, you run this. Tell us about your experience of really you and your husband being entrepreneurs together.
Well, I wouldn't ever want to work with him on a daily basis. God, I love him. We've been married 150 years, but I found it was two cooks in the kitchen. We were butting heads, and I didn't want to bring that home. So I learned a lot. He still handles the IT stuff. He's one of those guys that can do everything. So we did work together a lot in the beginning, but then he left and went back out into business, and I stayed. So we don't really run across each other. We're not running over each other.
Did you have to talk about that? Like, were you like, it's time for you to go? Or was it just it naturally he was ready to go do something else?
Well, he gets bored easily, so he
Uh-huh.
was ready to go.
You didn't like how steady you had to be to continue with this?
Yes, and he'd already learned it.
Maybe he's a builder. Like he likes to build and create, and then he wants to go create something else.
And I'm good with routine. I like to solve the puzzle, make it good, and I'll tweak, but I'm happy with that. I'm happy to go stop by McDonald's every day and get my Diet Coke. I'm happy with that.
We've learned that you could probably tell us which Diet Coke came from which place.
I know my workers at my place, at my McDonald's. But I think he recognized it as more of he's ready to get out there and do something.
Mhm.
He's really good at everything he does. So it was good. I mean, it was obvious because we were arguing about stuff at work, and I don't like that.
Mhm.
I think it's hard to work with your spouse.
We both do.
Amen. It has so many wonderful aspects to it. I mean,
Yeah.
I find my husband and I both admire each other more because we see each other at work and we go, wow, great job on that. You did an amazing job on that. You know, we can be grateful for each other in a different way.
But you've been at it for so long that you've been able to probably find that balance and make sure you're still in your same lanes. Whereas
Yeah.
Brad and I are newer to it, and we really do have our separate lanes, which makes it highly functional. And I think that a lot of credit is due to him in the fact that I am the CEO. I lead and run the business, and he runs the creative direct department, and he's okay with that. And I think that takes a lot of special types of people to be able to define it and run it that way. But we've recently been working on the fact of like not in bed. We're done talking about if we are in bed, I do not want to hear anything else about Resonate recordings. Like I need to go to sleep.
Yes.
And therefore we so quickly we could accidentally talk about something that would seemingly be no big deal. Like tomorrow, I need you to talk to such and such about something. And then my brain's back off to the races and I can't shut it back down.
Yeah.
So we're learning those processes, but it's cool that you all got to the realization of like, this is not the healthiest thing for us. And I think different people can do it. Different people can't do it. You have to figure it out and not let it destroy your life and marriage at the same time as building something together.
Yeah,
You know?
we had to do the same thing. We segregate it where we say we only talk about work. We get home from work. We barely see each other at work. We get home from work and we'll spend 20 minutes or 15 minutes. How was your day? And then if he was like at 8:00 at night, don't forget. I'm like, you got to send me an email. Like, I mean, I'm literally don't hand me something in the midair. I can't. I'm not going to do
We're
anything
still
with it.
figuring that boundary out, but
Just
we
send
also
me an
don't see or talk to each other during the day because we do such different things. But
And that might be part of it. We were not in different lanes, as you
Yeah.
say. It didn't feel that way anyway.
so, all right, tell us about where your business is today and what you all like thrive in and do. I mean, you kind of started to hint towards where you're at today, but you know, where are you at today? And then what is that vision for you and your future?
I'm proud of Talis Group. I guess that's okay to say about your own business. You know, it's sort of your baby, but I've got really good employees that are good at their jobs. And I feel like we can compete with any company. And sometimes, you know, that there's other recruiting companies and they'll say, we're national, international, we have 15 offices, but each office still has one person. They might only have 2 years experience. I feel like we can compete with anybody and win. And we do business with lots of big companies, and I don't think they realize how small we are. But I'm proud because we have really good hires and we're sought after. I mean, we are absolutely swamped right now. Every now and then I'll go to something and they're like, please don't come back with another job order. Please don't sell. But I do think
Never stop selling.
never stop
Never
selling.
stop selling.
The moment you
The
do-
funnel. But I think where we are now is pretty much where I was hoping to be successfully. Is we do very little temp. We really just do it as a favor to a couple clients. And we focus on direct hire and we focus on difficult hires. So it could be engineering. It could be, oh my gosh, some of the crazy sales type roles that we work with. We're working on vice president of accounting and finance, the top level at big companies. We've worked with small companies, and I don't have a preference on where our clients are, what kind of industry and how big they are, because I like the variety of it. And I think that's what kept us safe during COVID is we were all over the place. We don't have contracts with people, but we have all different size clients from, A to Z, every
Mhm.
industry you can think of. And I think that keeps you safe
Mhm.
personally.
Oh, diverse. Yes, a diverse client base.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're diverse, but you're also very clear about your niche. And we were talking before we started recording about comparison and how big are other people's companies, or you see how other companies are performing. And I think what I love about the maturity of the way you run your business is you know who you are, you know what you're good at, you know what clients you want to serve, and you just do it really, really well. Are you the biggest staffing firm? Are you on Business Versus lists and number one? Maybe not, but you're happy, you're making money, and you're doing great, great work. And I think it's easy in this world of, as I say, oligarchs, that are now, all these billionaires. How big is your business? How big can you make your business? And I love this idea of just, I'm happy with what I have. It's exactly serving my needs, and I'm doing great work in the community.
I think most of the recruiters feel this way, but you get excited when you solve a problem. That's what business is, right? You're just solving a problem. It's not rocket science. You have to know what your clients' problems are. Sometimes they're not good at identifying them or verbalizing them. So you have to be the expert. So when you come to me for recruiting and you tell me what you are looking to hire, I already see 10 mismatches, which I may or may not tell you about because that's what makes what I do valuable. And I might think, well, you're not going to market right on this. That's why you're not finding the right thing. So my job is to understand what their problem is, but I have to solve their problem.
Mhm.
I have to solve it. I was just saying this to someone today. You solve the problem, and then you solve what happens before and after your problem. So for hiring, I solve the problem if I get them the candidate that has the right skill set for the right salary, the right culture, and all these things. But I need to understand what happened before. What happened to the person before? Is is it a manager problem? Is it just a person left? Is it a difficult department? Help me understand what happened before you got to me, and then help me understand what happens after. What is your onboarding like? Because onboarding is important. It's your welcome. Hello, welcome to the company. And so many people do it so terribly.
Yeah.
They'll just send a quick email, say Monday 8 o'clock, say then bye. You know, we're excited about you starting because look at yourself. You want to do a good job. I really think most employees want to do a good job. You want to be welcomed to the place. And a quick email, I don't care if it's from HR and not your boss or not, you want to welcome.
Mhm.
And you don't want to just walk in there. We've had it happen. Walk in, I don't even know who to ask for. They told me come at 8, but nobody's at the workplace till 8:30. And it just sets a terrible tone. So we try to solve the problem and then understand what happened before it got to be our problem, and then how to get the next step, get them through our problem of hiring and get them onboarded correctly. So we try to watch all
And
that.
that's so much more valuable than just thinking about, I need this person with this personality profile. I mean, why someone left in the first place is something often we can overlook and maybe don't even want to take that second look at, oh, well, actually, they left because their manager is a problem, but that manager is a good producer. And so I'm afraid to worry with this problem because they're good at their work product, but they're actually kind of terrible to work for.
Mhm.
The fact that you're even taking a moment to look at that makes what you're doing unique. And it makes Maggie's point about building a business to be what you want it to be really great at a product and exactly what you want, and how valuable that is. And often we might not realize that we're shooting to $1 billion when reality, building the kind of business that you want, meeting whatever goal you set out for yourself. You said, I have reached the success that I wanted out of this company. What an amazing feeling to be able to say, I made it to where I wanted to make it. Not where everyone else thought.
Yay!
Yeah, exactly. Like that's huge. That's absolutely huge to be able to like know what you want, go make what you want, and say I made it, and
I
here it
did it.
is. I did it.
Yeah, but like how long ago would you say? Was there a moment you were like, okay, I did it?
Just 4 or 5 years ago, it was like a maturity finally hit me. Why am I stressing about ABC? I'm fine. So my new things I've been saying to my employees that's just happened in the last, say, 6 months is I do push people. I am type A plus. So I think sometimes they think I'm pushing people to be more profitable, but they're wrong. I am pushing them because I want them to make more money because I have them all on commission structures. So the other day I just said, I just have to say it. I'm going to just say it. I'm okay. I've got my financial ducks in a row. I could close that lights today. No problem. I'm pushing you for you because you have incredible orders right in front of your face and you have the ability to get them hired, but you got to get a little more hustle. That's my word this year. Every year they get a word. This word is hustle. I want to see more hustle. I want to see it. My boss at Porter Paint was wonderful to me. Peter Faulkner, he taught me so much. And he said, I can tell how busy someone is by how fast they walk in the hall. And if you watch that, there's a little bit of truth to it. And it might not be how busy they are, but it's how much of a go-getter they
Oh,
are.
it's definitely a hustle factor. I mean, if I see someone moving slow in an interview, take them on a tour and they're kind of looking around, taking their time, not keeping up, or walk behind them and see what pace they set. Yeah, I believe that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that.
So now I feel like, okay, my business is where I wanted it to be. I'm happy with that. And now I'm trying to help them build even a better life for themselves, because it's right there. And I say all the time, I'm like Jillian Michaels, I'm telling you, you got 10 more in you. Come on, give me 10 more reps. Because I think they need it.
Yeah.
How have you felt your personal experience as a CEO has changed since you kind of felt you've reached that point? Like once you realize, oh, I have my retirement set, I'm good, but I can help these people. I love this. I'm going to keep doing it. How have you come into the business differently as a CEO after
It's
that?
funny. I've not thought of that, but maybe that's why I'm pushing them harder. Because you would think I could just lay back and say whatever. But now I'm like, oh, okay, I'm okay. I want you to be okay. And I don't always like what I'm seeing. I mean, goodness, when they listen, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I want more hustle. There is more hustle in you. You hustle out at the end of the day. Why don't you hustle in at the beginning of the day, And maybe they're not type A, and thank gosh, because not all of us can be type A personalities. But I'm telling you, there's low-hanging fruit, and it's right in front of you. And I really want them to keep thriving, I want them to succeed at this.
Well, and I hear your heart in that. And I think that when someone has become, the enlightened and taken their own story into their own hands, or worked through the book that we were talking about where they've assessed your own thought process, what ends up happening is you want that for other people around you. You want for other people. And I've often found myself wanting more for other people than they might even want for themselves. And it's just a part of my DNA and that pushiness. I played volleyball growing up and I played in college, and so I'm a pusher as well.
Oh, I love
but
it
I
how
would call
people with
myself
sports.
an A minus. Like I would not call myself a type A person. I would actually call, and people think I am because I'm really intense, but I'm also not consistent and organized the way that you are all the time. But the pushing part and the wanting and the drive and the hustle, it is so important there's a difference in like anxiety and pushing yourself into stress mode, but there's also a general apathy and not living your life to the fullest because you're unconscious, because you haven't consciously taken hold of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and said, there's low hanging fruit. I can get more. I could improve this thing, and that tension when you become that kind of person and you want it for other people and you're like, I know it can be better for you. Come on.
Follow me.
Well, don't be a victim. I cannot stand all the victimhood that we have, because I can say, okay, yes, sometimes clients choose not to hire your candidates. Sometimes they make an offer that's not accepted. Sometimes we counter and that's not accepted. All these things happen. But how come you have them and this other person has them and they're doing 3 times the load as you are?
Mm-hmm.
The person who's doing 3 times the load, all I hear is, I've got to interview this candidate. I found a fit. I'm sending this. I've got a mismatch on dollars. I'm talking to them about this. That's what I hear. On the other people, sometimes I hear they turned the offer down. They didn't offer enough money. The client isn't having any benefits, and they're telling me all the obstacles. It's almost like you can just talk to both people, and you can tell who does 3 times the load.
Who's going to get it done?
Right.
Yeah, it's the difference between focusing on things you can't control versus focusing on the things you can control.
See, I have trouble with that because I think you can control so much.
I think as a whole, we can control more than what we realize. And that's not being ignorant to the systems at play. That's not necessarily being ignorant to where different people start or the trials and tribulations that people go through. But you see some people who accomplish amazing things through their trials and tribulations because something clicks for them in that where they become an overcomer rather than a victim. And it's not like we have systems here that as a country, we need to take a second look at so that we make it a more equitable place. And while we're still working on that, I can still control these things. I can control the controllables. And that was something my dad used to say over and over and over again. And he would remind me about not forgetting my keys. Turns out, Dad, I have ADHD, guys. But, the controlling the controllables, though, that has played out in many other parts of my life. And it sounds like for you, too, of like, this is something I can make a decision. I can do what I can do. And there's so much more of that than we realize sometimes.
Well, listen to this example. We have an attorney call. He's got a thriving business. He only has a few employees and he wants to hire. His problem is he keeps hiring the same position over and over and no one stays. Okay, then he tells me what he's paying and he's paying too low. But then he said he raised it $5,000 and I thought, okay, that's more in the range. And so then my recruiter hears, oh, he has no insurance. There's no medical, there's no dental, there's no vision, and there's no paid time off. But I don't hear it that way. I hear someone that doesn't know what they're doing on hiring, and he's given me all the golden keys. So I'm like, the problem is you're $5K off, $2 to $5K off on salary. The second thing is I can get someone over the hump of no insurance if we can talk a stipend. I will hook them up with a broker. Because the problem is people don't know how to get their own insurance. So I'm going to solve that problem. And pay time off doesn't cost you out of pocket, but it does cost you. I understand. But if you want someone to stay, I'm solving your problem. You have to give pay time off. And then I'll say it back to them. Almost everywhere you've worked, haven't you had at least 5 to 7 days pay time off? So this guy is awesome. I hadn't thought of it that way. Oh, yes, I could do it. He ends up coming up $2,000. He ends up giving 7 days pay time off, and he does give a stipend. So just because they tell you, here's what you're recruiting for and here's your problems, you can solve a lot of those problems with discussion and
education.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of small business owners, when they're early on like that, they might not realize what they can do or what something actually costs. They've just heard that health insurance costs too much or giving paid time off costs too much or whatnot. And it's like, you just have to help them realize that it doesn't if you're spending more money rehiring over and over again than if you would have just given PTO.
How much is that costing?
Yeah.
And even on the candidate side, she's younger. She doesn't know how to get her own insurance. So I've already introduced her to a broker. And I'm just, this type A terrible part of me is I've always already followed up because I am going to hound her. I want her to get the insurance. Because if she doesn't get the insurance in a year when she's offered $2,000 more and insurance, it's going to sound like it's solving a problem. And I want to get the problem solved now and get her on this insurance.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And I think that it shows your commitment to your clients. It shows your commitment, though, to people. Mm-hmm. You're taking a young professional and showing them the way. And the health insurance is one of those major problems for people. It's one of those things that I end up helping a lot of entrepreneurs with in our community because I've been through so many different versions of it at this point. And it's like, I never intended to be an expert on entrepreneurial health insurance, but apparently here we are,
You are now.
Yeah. But those are solving real problems that everyone experiences. Yeah. And you taking that into your own hands to help a person in the heart in that is amazing.
So if I were giving advice to an entrepreneur, I would say, identify the problem you're solving, and then just be like a crazy rabid animal where you're not going to release it, because a problem can be solved multiple ways. So I always say, people hand you problems all day long, but I don't just accept those problems. So like in that case, those are the ways I handled the problem he was handing me. But we get problems all the time where someone's like wants to use our services, does use our services, and then they're like, ooh, the fee. Well, it's not a surprise. I've told you up front what the fee is. So what's your problem? Is it the payment schedule? Maybe I can work with them on cash flow.
Yeah, I do think that the experience you have and the type of personality you have gives you that advantage of seeing obstacles as opportunities. And I think that it's important in entrepreneurship. Every obstacle is a learning experience. It's, my father used to say, I worked for him for years, and he used to say, it's not a no, N-O, it's a K-N-O-W.
Oh.
You have to when someone says no, you've just got to unpack it a little bit and figure out what's going on, and it might turn the corner. But I think a lot of times, people, young people, inexperienced people sort of want to avoid the no, and they want to blame it. Like, that kept me from reaching my goal.
And you know what I learned also growing up with all this? And I learned it years ago, but very powerful people or very high in their business people will not let you know what they don't know. They will not inquire. So it used to be when I was back at Porter Paint Days, you're presenting the financials and all these people, heads of marketing, heads of sales, not a question. I took that as they understood. Took me a while to realize it's because they misunderstood. They don't understand. So you over-explain because you're trying to reach their level of competency, because I don't know the ins and outs of marketing, and I don't expect them to know the ins and outs of accounting. I took that piece of knowledge into my business because the N-O, is often, I don't really know how this works, and I don't want to look foolish.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it costs. I don't know what's at risk for me.
I don't know what to ask you.
I don't know what to ask you.
Yeah, sometimes they get fixated on price because they don't know what else to talk about.
Right.
So, and that's when you have to be curious and make it a safe space for them for you to actually dig and find the real problem.
Yeah.
Well, this time with you has been so enlightening. I've got some things for me to think about, and I think that our audience will find this conversation extremely helpful, because it's the real stuff that we're dealing with, and the mental battles, and even the tactical of like being more curious and following through, being the hustle. There's so many good nuggets. So thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and agreeing to come share about your journey and your business with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun. I love it.
So much fun. I knew it'd be great.